those games where Buffalo, that they just played in kind of some, cold weather. It's always been talked about that if, the playoffs were to run through Buffalo, nobody's going to want to play there because of how unbearably cold and miserable it is. Kansas City, they obviously just played a game in like what was windy and the fourth coldest game. So I think that, this becomes kind of an interesting matchup where essentially, the two rivals of, teams that have been playing. And, for the most part, the Chiefs have gotten the better of the Bills the last, like 5 years or whatever it is since, the Mahomes and Allen eras and on their respective teams. And, the thing that I'd like to say about this game, I think, is that Buffalo runs the ball well, but it is very sporadic. And then you have Kansas City, where clearly they want to use Pacheco a lot. It's clear that they want to have him involved. They want to have a structured offense that isn't void of a running game, because that just, I mean, you become way too one dimensional. But, Isaiah Pacheco has been doing such a good job, lately, and is such a spark plug that I think that even though the Bills have a very tough and rugged defense, it is going to come down to really how much they can limit Pacheco. Don't get me wrong, I think Mahomes will do what Mahomes does, but the passing game wasn't exactly wasn't anything to sing home about. I think that the main reason the Kansas City won last week was because of their defense holding the Dolphins down. And I don't think they're going to be able to do that against Buffalo. So, looking at injuries, you do have Diggs questionable. He's obviously going to play, you know. With the Chiefs, Kadarius Toney questionable, Justin Ross questionable, and then you obviously have had Sky Moore on IR. So they have a banged up wide receiver core that mostly is Rashee Rice, Valdez Scantling, and then Kelsey. But thinking about the Chiefs, I just don't think that they have that guy who has emerged as a factor. I thought Kelsey would for sure emerge as kind of, what him and Mahomes do as one of those dynamic QB to tight end duos that dominates in the postseason. But even against a struggling defense of the Dolphins, Kelsey had I would say a below average game last week. And I don't think it's going to get easier with the Bills. The Bills, play a very tough defense. I think they overall have a better pass rush as well than the Chiefs overall. Not to say I don't think Chris Jones can still like take over a game type of thing. But looking at this game, I do think Buffalo holds the edge. I also think they hold the edge because I think that Allen is kind of realizing his potential. Excuse me, especially after last week where it's like he had that 52-yard run and he just looks like a man on a mission essentially, where I know that Mahomes can scramble too, but Allen is just a brutal and harsh runner. And not to say that the Chiefs defense isn't going to give him some problems, but I think that he's finally realizing how he has to play in order to not turn it over. Obviously last week it's like he went up against, the Bills, didn't go up against like the best. They didn't go up against the best defense, and especially without TJ Watt and the Steelers. but they're still a pretty opportunistic defense. And the way that Allen had been throwing the ball in that final week against Miami just made me wonder, like, is he gonna fix this hopefully? And is this gonna put a shock to his system? And the Buffalo Bills, interestingly enough, when Josh Allen hasn't had a turnover, are they're 11-0. And I think that he knows as much as anybody that turnovers in the postseason, of course, are a kryptonite to most teams. So, if he can really just hold it down to where he doesn't turn the ball over, I think that they win this game. So I'm going to go with Bills. And this is kind of, and here's the thing about, the Chiefs too, is that they haven't ever played a game away from home in the postseason. So it's going to be something kind of new for like Mahomes, where he's not going to be able to be as comfortable with the home crowd, is one random tidbit that, I'd also like to mention. So looking at this game, they give it 2.5 point favorites, which I think is, pretty accurate. And I would like to say that I think the game's going to come down to the wire and it's going to be like a 24-23 game or something like that. So in favor of Buffalo.